Alrighty, welcome to another episode of the Lockdown Podcast. Continuing to pick apart as we do of Raw and SmackDown. And most currently, we are in the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments, which is always interesting because I feel like they just throw people in there,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of it. A lot of the people they put in there are basically current champions, which I feel like if it like the King of Ring of old, I felt like was more like giving opportunity to more people to get to a certain point versus it smothering with current champions of secondary titles or tag team titles or whatever it be. Um, and it's just covered with current champions. So, and I feel like, it needs to be something more like where it's nobody holding any kind of gold and getting a shot at the championship. Or in this case, we have literally Liv Morgan literally in the tournament and she's the champion, and that doesn't make sense to me.
Mhm.
But you know what? I'm not the one saying what to put on the show, so we'll just roll with it and accept it for what it is. Basically on one side, so on Raw, we basically had the fatal four-way between Penta, Obafemi, Solo Sikoa, and Carmelo Hayes, and in typical fashion, Obafemi won. Not really too surprised. But on the flip side, we had Roxanne Perez, Io Sky, Julia, and Lash Legend. On that side of it, and Io Sky winning that, which I think Io Sky is more over than people think.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of being over is having something that makes you stand out, and it's the like whatever it is an absolute craze.
Yeah.
Um, and so, I it's no different than whoop that trick. So I mean, I honestly hope Io Sky wins the whole thing personally, and goes on to face Liv Morgan at SummerSlam like you think it should happen, because again, Liv Morgan shouldn't be in the tournament being the champion. That would be the same thing with why would like Cody being in the tournament or something, or it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But again, I don't make the show. I just talk about it. And that is what we do. And so Raw this past week, we kicked off the show with something that they normally do at the end of the show.
Mm.
And so we got Roman Reigns coming out planked by the Usos, and I kind of love the subtlety of the joke about them saying that Jacob Fatu late for his first day of work, um in the kind of bit when they were talking before he came out. And I thought it was a really well done segment. I think Jacob Fatu fits in. Obviously, he's legit bloodline, obviously. And I liked the segment. I kind of liked the couple stabs that Jacob made towards Jey Uso, and then Roman being like the tribal chiefs over here. And I feel like there just has to be a confrontation down the road between Jay and Jacob. I don't see it happening, this year. But I feel like it's a small snippet of a possibility. Because WWE has a recipe or a trope or whatever you want to call it of basically planting these little seeds for things later to come. Yeah. So I thought it was a good segment. I thought, it was good on Jacob Fatu, and obviously kind of him, aligning himself. Um, this is definitely War Games material, but I don't think they're doing War Games this year. But I think we've had enough of the bloodline being in a War Games match. But so we get to our first round of the King of the Ring tournament. Obafemi facing off against Carmelo Hayes, Solo Sikoa, and Penta. No real surprise, honestly, that Obafemi won. Now, I see something, and I think we talked about this beforehand. Obviously, we're going to be getting a Obafemi and Brock Lesnar trifecta match. And I think I'm putting this in the ether, even though it's probably already there. But Brock Lesnar is going to screw over Obafemi in the finals.
Yeah. I agree.
And that's the only possible way to lead up to the match. Because we don't need a build. We don't need a build for Obafemi Brock Lesnar. It's already written. It's already what it is. It's you have literally pretty much one of the best combat sports person across the board, not just WWE, not just UFC, not just in college professional wrestling. I mean, you have truly the beast of the ring. That being Brock Lesnar. He's done everything there has to be done. And obviously, like I said, we're going to see Brock Lesnar versus Obafemi at SummerSlam. It has to happen. And I think that Obafemi needs to win the third match.
Yeah.
And then Brock can truly retire and pass the baton to Obafemi. But what do you think? Well, what's...
Yeah,
I mean,
so I do think Obafemi needs to win the last of the matches that they're going to have. Do I need to see Brock Lesnar retire? At this particular point, yes and no. Yes, he can go on and do his thing. No, he can still have some matches. Do I want to see Brock Lesnar and Gunther? No. Do I want to see Brock Lesnar and Braun Breaker? Maybe. But I gotta also know that there's a definitive end for Brock Lesnar and his career. Do I want it to come out the hands of Gunther? No, not the least bit. Let it be by someone who could really benefit from that win.
Yeah, and I think that it would be ideal to have Obafemi be finish him off truly, just because I don't think there's any fantasy booking or any fantasy match we want to see, because the Gunther, the opportunity for Gunther versus Brock, the time has come and gone. And obviously with all the lawsuit stuff, when Brock kind of exited for a couple years, that was the only time frame that would have been feasible to have Brock versus Gunther. And that time has come and gone. Gunther is on to new things. He's on to new storylines. And unfortunately, there's nothing left for that feud.
I wouldn't dismiss it, but I don't need Gunther to retire Brock Lesnar. I need Brock Lesnar to be able to say, like, hey, I'm just done now. I don't need another, him leaving his boots and stuff in the ring. I don't need to see that. I just need to, Brock to be done. He doesn't need to come back. He doesn't need to do anything. Now, if he wanted to come back and be like, you know what, I just want to beat up people. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm here for that. Just randomly treating people like he always treated John Cena with beating John Cena down, then F5ing him, and then just leaving. I could get behind that. It doesn't have to
Yeah,
be any.
I just think I don't think you should oversaturate his presence just because there's so much else going on. There's
Hmm.
so many other storylines at play, and I don't want any other storyline to be overshadowed by Brock Lesnar's randomosity.
Yeah,
And I just think there has to be a definitive retirement, a legit retirement, indefinitely, I mean, there's a long list of top tier men that are Hall of Fame worthy.
hmm,
Um, I mean, we still are lobbying for Bray Wyatt to be in the Hall of Fame. We still have John Cena on the docket. We have Brock Lesnar on the docket, but all three of those are main event level. Those are this is the last thing that comes on, and so there's not room for two of them on any Hall of Fame card.
yeah,
And I think a lot of us are lobbying still for Bray Wyatt
hmm,
more than John Cena. And I've had many of conversations, people, when I get, lift riders and stuff talking about who's your top guys and everything else. And I'm really not high on John Cena. I thought he was good for the business. I think his adamant outside of the business being the biggest, most asked for Make a Wish person. I think he did great strides outside of the business,
hmm,
but he was too cliche for, if you look back in retrospect, how cliche he was, how much of a do-goody he was, and back when his era, I mean the championships were moving around a lot more. And so the number of championships does not do anything for me. People say GOAT because he has so many championships, but then it's like but then you look at other champions and the longevity they had. I'm not gonna say Roman Reigns is better than John Cena, but like, you look at the longevity of holding championships and putting on 5-star matches and coming out on top. Those are the guys I'm looking at. It's kind of like what CM Punk said: just because you did it longer didn't mean you did it better. And that is, for me, that is 100% fact, because you know part of being champion is really proving week in and week out that you're the best. And CM Punk had a 400 something day reign and defended his title over 30 times versus Roman that had almost 14, was it 1314 days or 1413 days, one of the two numbers, but and defended it maybe 50 times. I mean, and so I look at the people that have been workhorses, like a Seth Rollins, that you look at, yeah, he doesn't have a shit ton of titles like a John Cena or a Triple H or Randy Orton, but you look at his work ethic, and that's what's more important to me,
hmm.
is that you continue to put on matches that say you're the best. But sidetrack averted. But so we had at Clash in Italy, we had Sol Ruka defeat Becky Lynch, and so we get the conversation with Sol Ruka coming out and everything, and I think, like I believe I said something of the same last week, was that I don't want her winning this championship very quick in her main roster career to fizzle out her like they did with Julia. And when you're getting to the main roster, like, yes, winning a championship is very important. Obviously Julia got more mid-card matchups and won the secondary title versus like a Stephanie Vaquer, who was thrust into the main event scene and won the top championship. And so, obviously they've fizzled out quite a bit of their roster. So I feel like I don't feel like she's going to get overstepped by too many people. And like a lot of people are saying, and I know we've talked about this outside of the podcast in the back of my car, but like, that Sol Ruka needs to adjust her finisher some way, or people need to learn how to take it because, she has a different moveset than a lot of performers, right? A lot of performers, they do things off the top rope that is the person's laying down and they're not moving and they're just doing a moonsault or the prettiest moonsault or the split-legged moonsault, stuff like that. They're not doing what she does. And honestly, her Soul Snatcher is on a different level. And I think the roster either needs to figure out how to take it or they need to adjust some kind of alternative setup to her finisher.
Yeah, I am 100% against. I'm 100% for her changing her finisher and using the Soul Snatcher as like, I have nothing left in the tank. I've got to hit her with this and secure the win. Anything outside of that, I don't want to hear it. I think that move needs to be used sparingly, kind of like Finn Balor's Demon. It just comes out of nowhere. It's a perfect setup. Like, for example, like if she were to hit that like on Charlotte Flair for a women's championship after not seeing it for so long, it would be, it would remind people that, she's that girl,
Yeah. I mean, and well, the thing is too, is that there's no way to truly adjust the move to have the impact it has when she does it. Because it's not like a Cody cutter, it's not an OG cutter where they have time to make, basically jump in a way towards their performer to set it up. It's the performer has to be in the right spot to take the Soul Snatcher. And it's, like I said, it's a whole different move set. Right. And yeah, I mean, and like I said, sparingly. I think it doesn't mean it can't happen, but it's like if it's going to continue to do this, these wrestlers need to know how to take it, because it just makes her look foolish when it's like, she botched. No, she's done. This is the same spot she hits it at anybody in NXT. It's just this main roster talent isn't ready for a move like that. And so, because I've watched her do it, you watched her do it at the Royal Rumble. I've watched her do it dozens of times in NXT, and people took it like champs. And so, I guess we'll just kind of wait and see what they do with it. I love the move. I think it's phenomenal. But if people can't know how to take it properly, it just makes it look like she's botching, and it makes her look foolish, and the chirpers will come out of the woodworks and, there's this, and she does this, and she's slipping, and she's this, and she's that, and really anybody that does a top finisher, like a top rope finisher at like the middle of the show to the end of the show, those ropes are freaking wet. Okay. From everybody's sweat, they're not going out there with towels wiping down the ropes after every match. They change out the mat, but they're not wiping down the ropes. Yeah. And so it's just a difficult move again, but so we recently, obviously a couple weeks ago, we got the news that Rey Mysterio was going to be the general manager of AAA. And I feel like he needs to cut back his schedule as far as being a consistent performer. I mean, he got inducted in the Hall of Fame like probably 3-4 years ago, and he's still active. And don't get me wrong, Ray can still go. Like Ray is a phenom in and of itself because of how long he's been in the business, and he still does it absolutely flawless.
Yep, about 3 years ago, 2023. Yep.
Yeah,
Um,
and
and he's not that old. I mean, you know, if he does it right, he can wrestle as long as he wants to, as long as he's taking care of his health and his knees. I know he's had a lot of problems with his knees, even as far as going to have stem cell treatments. As long as he's taking care of himself, his health, yeah. Do I think he needs to, you know, I don't think there's a conflict of interest, right? And I think that's
yeah,
what we're ultimately getting at. Ray, you're the general manager of AAA, but you're still an active performer in WWE. They're technically not the same promotion. They're two different promotions. So
yeah,
I get that. And as you know what, I think it's fine. I think it's fine because it's not like he doesn't have history with Mexican wrestling.
yeah.
And
And I
being a
think
part
as
of
long as
AAA is great.
yeah, and I think as long as he's doing Nick Aldis, Adam Pierce level production in the back and these little segments and stuff, I
Hmm.
think you wouldn't even notice. And it wouldn't really affect anything because he's doing the kind of the bare minimum, probably maybe getting 15 to maybe 10, 15 minutes of video footage in the back.
Hmm.
Like Nick Aldis and Adam Pierce do, and Adam Pierce always needs a drink. But
Yeah.
but I mean, like you said, I think it's feasible to do both. It's just, I
You want
I'm
to,
kind of indifferent about it.
it's like
Um,
you want to see, people like, you know, when they're done with the business, they're done with the business. If you're going to be in that managerial role, you probably shouldn't be wrestling. However, I want to see Nick Aldis versus Adam Pierce at SummerSlam. You
oh,
know,
all day,
because
all day.
they're both incredible, credible wrestlers.
Oh,
They
I still
both
want to. I
have.
still want to see Jessica Carr versus Becky Lynch, man.
You know what?
I'm I'm gonna speak
Apparently,
that into the
Jessica has been
ether.
training, so if it happens, it wouldn't be the first time we've seen a referee versus a wrestler.
Yeah,
We can get that. We can get manager versus manager. You know what? You know
have
what?
some fun with it.
You know what? And I think that's what we need.
Well,
Going back to Ray. If it's not causing a problem, you know, let it be what it is. Let's
yeah.
just enjoy it because at any given time, Ray could get released, Adam Pearce could get released, Justin
Yeah,
Carr could get
I
released.
mean they're disappearing people freaking left and right, and there was these clips I seen about like, oh, bringing back Braun Strowman, and I'm like, no, TKO destroys people's careers. I was like, they did it to Karrion and Scarlett, they did it to Alistair and Zelina. I said, they've done it with so many performers where it's like they'll bring them back. Oh, Andrade, what did that happen? Nothing. Like they brought back Santos Escobar, same thing. Like if you got gone from WWE, never fucking come back unless you're gonna like work in the back or something because TKO will chew you up and spit you out. And if and let's take a pay. Everybody needs to take a pay cut, but they get 300% raises. Okay, but anyways,
Mhm.
I digress. We digress. I don't want to chirp too much about things we've already talked about a million times, but we get Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee, which versus Ethan Page and Rusev, and I I definitely think that Dragon Lee is getting the as much Rey Mysterio rub as he can. I think Dragon Lee is basically to me would be kind of the next Rey Mysterio. Um, but I don't see Dragon Lee being in the main event picture, unfortunately. I see him as an agile mid carder putting on good matches.
Mhm.
Um, but so we finally get to the women's first fatal four way of round one for the Queen of the Ring, and we get Io Sky versus Roxanne Perez, Julia, and Lash Legend.
Right.
And honestly, these Fatal 4-Ways are good matches. Like, I don't take anything away from these matches. Io Sky does get the win. And I'm not mad about it. I I want Io Sky back in the main event picture. She's a step above these mid carders, and she's a phenomenal wrestler. I don't think people give her enough credit. In that she's very precise. She's very botch free in the ring. And so I'm really hoping that, we get Io Sky into the finals, I hope. But we still have 2 Fatal 4-Ways to go. But so once again, we finally get another Seth Rollins versus Braun Breaker match. And these matches are just proving Seth right. And in the sense of like, because everybody's been chirping, as far as like, Braun Breaker seeming to fall short when it comes to the big matches. And obviously he lost to Seth Rollins in the championship match, and he's lost now 2 times in just matches on Raw against Seth Rollins. And I believe Braun Breaker's injured again, I believe. Which is like, I think we talked about it in the group chat a little bit. It's like, it's probably why he's not playing football, because he seems to be injury prone.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is like his moveset and his speed. And I think those things play against each other. And yeah, the 23 miles an hour thing in the ropes, yeah, that's fine. But it's like, I feel like in the ring, that stuff is fine. But he does all this crap outside of the ring where it seems to be, this is where he's getting injured.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I think you're right. His level of intensity is not as controlled as Anelia Dragunov.
yeah.
They're both intense characters, right? Both intense athletes, both intense performers, but somebody seems to always be hurt. But up until like that tear injury that Ilya had, he wasn't. So I don't know what he is doing and why he's getting why that's not working. Why Ilya is pretty safe, and Braun keeps getting hurt. Maybe just this group, this faction, is just injury prone. You know what I'm saying? And it's it does happen, but maybe they are cursed. I think I heard it somewhere on the internet that somebody said that the group is cursed. And
Well,
maybe
I think I think a lot of it is
yeah,
because they play off intensity, and they play off adrenaline. They're just adrenaline junkies, right?
sure.
You have Braun, that's, like the Energizer Bunny. You have Logan Paul, that's basically willing to do whatever for likes, swipes, and fandom, versus trying to be remote, somewhat safe. Like, you can still have brutality, but have it be like the confines of a certain parameter. They're playing fast and loose. That's how Logan Paul has always been. And again, I don't mind Logan Paul as far as being a superstar, right? Like, I've been very outspoken about that. But the problem is that now that he's wrestling, now that he's been more involved, he can't hang. And it's, you see it, because he's injured already. I mean, he's been with the Vision for what, 6 months maybe? And now that he's having to be more consistent in wrestling regular matches on a semi-weekly basis, he can't hang. And I think that his ego is writing checks he can't cash, because if you haven't done it, if you haven't started in the business, your body is more calloused. It's gone through the weathering of putting in real work, not just work at the PC, but through the developmental brands, through NXT, through all of these other branding where you start building up a capacity to handle weekly stuff. And I feel like honestly Logan just needs to go. I'm not in the sense of fire Logan Paul thing, that Joe Hendry's been doing, but I just don't think he has the longevity. He's cool as a spectacle, like he was before when he was maybe wrestling 3 matches a year, doing these little spectacle matches. That's fine, but the second this man really got in the business, I don't think it's going to work out. And I think the vision in its entirety, I mean, we don't know when Bronson will be back. Logan is out for at least 6 months. Braun Breaker seems to be getting injured more than anything else. And so now you're basically left with Austin Theory and Paul Heyman.
Yeah.
And I think the vision is not even just cursed. I think they're a curse to their own demise by how they perform and the moves they do and the risks they take. You look at like a Jeff Hardy who lived his life off Extreme, right? But again, he was wrestling for a really, 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 really long time. And that was how he wrestled, but he built it up. He built up that legacy, because he could handle it. Some of these guys now doing these big moves, I just feel like they're a detriment to their own demise because they're doing risky moves that unless you've been doing it for a while, it's more on your body than it was before.
Yeah, I just did a quick search, and it's being reported that he's banged up, but he's not injured where they have to take him off TV. So, with that being said, I would agree that some people just have a natural aptitude for professional wrestling, right? Because they have an athletic acumen and they've always been active. They just naturally gravitate. And some people condition and train their bodies to do that. I think anytime you're going to go into this business and you're going to start, you've got to be able to condition your body. And sometimes your body's going to break and it's going to heal up, and that's the nature of the business. With that being said, my opinion of Logan Paul getting hurt, I think that could have been anybody getting hurt. We've seen Bronson Reed, who's a seasoned vet, tear his bicep. We know that other wrestlers have torn their bicep on crazier moves. We personally just don't care for Logan Paul personally, and how he's been positioned in WWE. I think he's earning his keep, but still the partnership, that just kind of stings a little bit, especially when you have long-term people that could use that investment and that could have been really solid characters and workers for you. For him to get that spot and that opportunity, like I said, you're just going after the here and now instead of planning for the future. You're just using up people as a commodity. But the human body breaks down. So what I would like to see more of is not to have these high impact move sets that put a performer at risk just for a moment. I don't need to see Braun Breaker every week, spearing people through a barricade or whatever have you. What I need to see is Braun Breaker every week performing and taking care of his body and the people that he's working with.
Well, and like you said, in regards to Sol Ruca, is that some of this stuff needs to be used sparingly. those spears running down the ramp, or them running around him running halfway around the ring and doing all that stuff, it's risky. And it doesn't take much to just half a second less or half an extra roll, to do damage. And
Yeah.
those kind of things need to be spectacle, not just part of the gimmick.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. Like I don't like seeing wrestlers injured, because then it's like WWE's got them one step out the door, because they
Hmm.
just don't give a shit anymore, and they just like, you had Zoe Stark that was injured and got released. So like, I feel like when you get injured, you should really be like working your ass off to get back, because they will boot you out the door just the same, because they don't care. They don't care about all they
Yeah.
care about is money, money, money. And they'll pass the buck, no problem. Bye, deuces. And so if you're doing these moves that are risky, you're not only risking the move, but you're risking your fucking job.
Yeah.
So um but so over to SmackDown. So we had the match at Clash in Italy, when we had Gunther, whose leg was under the rope. And honestly, very justified. Um, him being absolutely pissed off. And so he's coming out, basically going full Drew McIntyre, as it were. Um, After all the times Gunther would mock Drew McIntyre, he is literally the Austrian Drew McIntyre. But the thing is, his stuff is justified. Drew McIntyre is just a crying bitch. Like, Gunther has a legitimate gripe, and I this match needs to happen again. Um, I don't know in which capacity, but it does need to happen again. And so you have this whole spat. You have Gunther out there bitching and moaning, and then you have Cody come out and do Cody things, and then obviously shit hits the fan, and then Sami Zayn decides to put his nose where it doesn't belong. And I honestly think, like, if they're going to turn someone heel at some point in time, this is a proper moment for Sami Zayn to be heel, because he has the resume of someone who should be pissed off. He has the resume, he has the screwed over moments of a heel. And I just feel like they need to cut it loose, because this Sammy do-getter shit is really just stale now. We need to see something different from Sami Zayn. Stop being the helper. Just mind your business. And whatever happens to someone else is not your problem. But it's like they're just gonna keep on giving us this off and on. Which Sami Zayn are we gonna get today? That's one thing Cody said, was like, which Sami Zayn am I dealing with today? And he's kind of not wrong, because one second he's like, yeah, sorry about your luck, Cody, I'm out. And then now he's helping him this week. And
Yeah. The flip flopping, I think, if I were to look at it from a story to think about it, it's just it's to make him seem unpredictable. You don't know where his loyalties lie. If he's a friend of Cody's, or he's a friend of Gunther. You know, I want to. We've seen this before. It's just been repackaged. Um, because either he's going to turn heel, and it's just going to be a super letdown on everybody, and it gets him into that heel era again, or he's going to stay face, and he's going to be go back to being, or not go back, but still being that underground hero that you can cheer for. Look, we've seen it before. I don't know if I need to see Sammy as a heel, but Sammy as a face, I think probably has run its course for now. I think what I would like to see is a valid, frustrated Sammy he wants to get over that championship hump and get his first world championship because we all agree that he deserves it and he needs it.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's and the thing is that like Cody finishing his story was more about his father than him.
yep, we
And
said that.
but Sami Zayn's overcoming and again kind of finishing his story and his his career milestones is that this is for him. This is for no one else but him. And so he doesn't have to play this wily game of why he wants to be champion or or his wants and needs for some kind of wrongdoing from something. It just needs to be solely for Sami Zayn, and I think that Sami Zayn needs to just be worried about Sami Zayn and take the opportunities as they come and really kind of brush off everybody else's problem. Like he needs to stop being the savior of everybody. And
Yeah.
it's we're getting like this god complex of Sami Zayn has to help everybody out and be everybody's friends, and he needs to stop being everybody's friend. And because Sami Zayn is a main event player, like I that's there's nothing he hasn't shown us that doesn't lead us to know that he's a main event player. It's
Right.
just they have not pulled the trigger on it, and it's
Yep.
like he's won everything else, and
Mhm.
it's just kind of ridiculous that he hasn't had a championship reign. And you could say the same thing about Sheamus not getting his IC title to complete his Grand Slam. It's like why do they hold people back to a certain point? And it's like, and just don't let something happen because everybody would lose their mind if when Sami was in when the championship. They're gonna lose their mind. Freaking confetti coming from the rafters. I mean, all of Kevin Owens will probably have him on his shoulders. I mean, and just like it would be an amazing moment. And I guarantee you that it would probably be in the top 5 most viewed videos of WWE's YouTube page
Yeah.
because the moment needs to happen and they need to stop
Mhm.
pussyfooting around it. And it's like, okay, cool, Cody, you finish your story. Let's move on to something else. And we're
Mhm.
all over Cody as being champion. We're all, and it's like him. Like I don't know what's more obnoxious. CM Punk coming out and say, "Isn't it a great day to be alive on a Monday night?" Blah blah blah, and or Cody coming out and giving this. What do you want to talk about? Like it's just regurgitated nonsense that it's like you just have to spew it out like you're getting paid per quote for all these things you say. And
It could be the micromanagement that WWE does. It's just part of the thing, you know. And I think it is unfortunate.
yeah. So we got our second women's fatal 4-way in the first round for the women's Queen of the Ring tournament, and we got Raquel Rodriguez versus Bayley, Kiana James, and JC Jane. And so Raquel wins,
Yes.
and then we get this backstage segment because it seems to be that the Judgment Day is basically ran by Liv Morgan, and she's in the back talking and basically saying, and they're all talking like you're going to be queen of the ring and blah blah. And this is on the this is after Raquel won.
Hmm.
And this has to be a crack in the shield of the Judgment Day. Like it has to be because one, Raquel has basically had to be the constant in WWE, right? You have because Raquel's been the only constant. Because like when it was Finn, JD, Liv, and Raquel, it was like, oh well, Liv's out with an injury, so then Finn just brings in Raquel Rodriguez, and Raquel just has to kind of deal
No,
with it because
he brought in Roxanne Perez.
or Roxanne, yes.
Yep.
And
Too many
so yeah, I know Raquel, Roxanne, but no, and so she's had to basically kind of go along to get along on the Judgment Day, and it's like, when are they going to cut her loose? Because Raquel is main event, okay? It's the same thing we say about Finn Balor, is that Raquel should not be playing second fiddle to a group, because Raquel is phenomenal. She is strong. She puts on great matches because, she's stronger than you think. And, and I hate to see that these good wrestlers have to play second fiddle in these groups. I mean, I don't get it. Damian Priest has always put on phenomenal matches, and it's like the Judgment Day was kind of, back when it was just the original three, it was fine, and then when he went to Judgment Day, it just kind of waters him down. Like we waited, 2 years for Finn Balor to finally exit or get excommunicated from them, and we haven't seen Finn in a while, which is kind of weird, but like,
well, he's on SmackDown now.
Yeah. And so, but like, we've always been praying for the downfall of Judgment Day, because it seems to be, it's all about Liv and Dominic, even though Dominic really is honest to God trash. And and honestly, like, I don't knock him that he's not a good performer. It's just that history has told us 90% of his matches, he's had either tomfoolery where he's put something in his boot, or he has outside, interference all the time. And like, I get those are heelish things. I get it. But it's just like, you water someone down when they can't win straight up matches. And being that he's the AAA mega champion and really has done nothing with that to my recalling of anything happening in AAA. But yeah, but again, Dominic won't function by himself. Like, that is the truest statement ever, because some wrestlers just function in groups, right? Because you could have not, like, Big E by himself is probably would have been fine, but like, and honestly, Kofi was fine by himself, but Xavier Woods independently, not really that entertaining. That he functions in a group, and like a lot of them too is that like there are a lot of mid carders that just function in a group and make them look main event. Like JD McDonough is not main event at all. He's nothing more than mid card at best. And same thing with really Dominic. Like I don't see him as, top tier guys. He's not like one of those top 10 guys. And I just don't know. Like, the Judgment Day is essentially spinning their wheels at this point. And I really hope we get some more dismantling, because I want to see Raquel do her own thing, because she's better off alone, better off doing singles, and should not play second fiddle, because it's like they play her as the powerhouse, right? And then it's like you basically have Raquel doing all the dirty work because you guys can't get it done. And I think Raquel without Raquel in the Judgment Day, they're not really shit. I really think, like, at this point, Raquel is the true star, right? Because she's always the one doing all the work. She's the one helping Liv maintain her championship. She's doing all the legwork. And now with this tournament coming up, like, they're talking like she didn't win a match to qualify for the quarterfinals. And like, that doesn't matter because Liv's going to win the whole thing. and I honestly think that this just has to reach a point. I don't think we're not gonna see them in the finals just because given Liv is champion, but like this feud is coming up soon.
Yeah.
But so after the match, Kiana James was beyond frustrated, I guess, and we've talked about beforehand kind of the re-emergence of Julia and kind of changing the character a little bit. Different outfits, obviously dyed her hair, got rid of all the braid stuff for the most part. I think honestly it's good now that her and Julia are done. And so Julia can kind of do her own thing, kind of hone in her Io Sky, I guess, as a great singles competitor. But I don't know, like that just means in my head that Kiana James is next on the chopping block.
If anything, I think Kiana James, I think anybody should just go back to NXT instead of just being released.
Yeah.
You know, I just, I don't know what Kiana or Julia needs. I think let's see what they do with their presentation since they're
and
stopping this whole like Kiana James partnership. We'll see a few matches between those two. Um, and it could go either way. I think with booking for them, they both
yeah,
could be like used as people to put over other people, but with all the fanfare that they have, and when they brought in
yeah. Well, and
Julia, I think we need to see from Julia is the same type of push that Stephanie Vancouver got before she got injured. Apparently, Stephanie Vancouver is pretty injured. Like,
yeah. Well,
she hasn't
and
been,
the thing
used.
that's kind of unfortunate is that they've been tearing up everybody at this point, right? We had the exuberant amount of NXT call ups to the main roster, and now we've had a lot of the LFG stars, the Evolve, class move up to NXT, and so it's like now NXT is kind of moving in a different direction per se, as far as the talent they have now, because the roster is very, very young. It is very, coming up. And so now it's like with everybody they brought up from NXT to the main roster, now it's like there's no room to go backwards. So like the only direction you have to go now is forward. And it's like we're still on the I have no idea what's going on with the John Cena Classic crap. I mean, and so we still have no information about that for I don't know 4 or 5 weeks since he talked about it, and it's just like so it's like we have enough going on to talk about just on a regular weekly basis, but the fact that you present this grandiose idea and this PLE you're going to have on a yearly basis, I don't know where the hell you're going to fit it in for one. Just because unless you're going to treat it like a Saturday night's main event, like there's no place for it. We have the PLEs listed as they are. We have the matches, we have the cities, we have everything going on. So I don't know where you fit in unless it's something they're going to roll out January 2027. But it's like, then why did you present it so early? And then just have the idea go completely belly up. But so we've been having this issue with kind of Royce Keys kind of toting the line. Everybody seems to want Royce Keys in their faction and their group, and he's just I kind of want to be solo. but he's also kind of has these little friendships with obviously Jacob Fatu. He's got stuff going on with R-Truth. And so I don't think he's going to be a group guy. But they got to figure out something for him.
You know,
And
I think I like this story. I think like where they're trying to go with Royce Keys because he hasn't had a major feud, and they're probably starting to line him up to have like a major feud. But I like the fact that he's wanting to do solo and he's just cool with everybody. Um, because then if creative says we want to pull the trigger and do heel stuff, or we're going to kind of keep you a face and start to align you with something, it seems like they're just trying to play him safe and not make him heel or make him face 100% and have it
they're still working on
fall
where he
apart.
fits.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
um yeah, and I don't think I need to see Royce Keys um
Like not main event
definitive.
player, but at least have some kind of compelling storyline that he gets in.
I you know what, I would like to see them build Royce Keys as someone who's a workhorse, and that every win he gets, he's fought for it, and every championship that he gets, it's been well earned. Like he had to learn something or he had to go through something. Like I need there to be conflict with him, but I don't need it to necessarily have to be like with other people, but just with getting into the business. Like, all right, you did really good in the independents and the minors and other promotions, but now this is a whole different animal. So the conflict isn't with other wrestlers, it's with finding your place in this machine and making the most of it. That is the conflict. That's the story.
Yeah.
You know what
I
I'm
mean, and
saying?
then well, and I think like too is you have to also play trial and error
Hmm.
because like this stuff that they with the whole R-Truth kind of being kind of helpful and Damian Priest kind of being like, no, this is not our problem. And to a certain extent, he's not wrong, in what Damian Priest is saying. It's just that, R-Truth is lovable. He is likable. Everyone loves R-Truth. Everyone likes R-Truth. And R-Truth fits in pretty much any storyline. And I don't know if we're gonna get anything out of this in regards to the R-Truth, Damian Priest, Royce Keys debacle. But again, you just gotta, sometimes you have to try different spots in the box and see what fits.
Yeah.
And I think if it's Royce Keys on a journey of discovery, then let it ride. Um, now, so we get this whole wonderful, glorious segment with Rhea Ripley coming out, followed by Charlotte Flair, followed by Tiffany Stratton, followed by Jade Cargill, Michin, and BFAB. And so we end up getting a match, obviously in typical recipe, trope, whatever you want to rearrange it as. But
Hmm.
and once again, obviously they put over Jade Cargill and Michin, beating Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton. Um, I don't think there's gonna be any kind of fallout in regards to Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair. I don't think there's really anything there other than hey, we lost a match. Life goes on. Um, but so I Ricky Saints is kind of having trouble in my purview is that he's having trouble finding a spot to be in. And obviously, so he had the match with Carmelo Hayes, I think it was the week prior. Obviously, Carmelo got the win. Ricky Saints gets the win this week. But I don't know, like, far as like the mid card level performers, like what they're going to do with this, because I feel like Carmelo Hayes, he is top tier NXT, and unfortunately he is mid card on the main roster. And I would love to start seeing, Trick having more title defenses and, getting to some different feuds, because is like he's over as an entrance, but I don't
Yeah.
think he's over as a performer.
Mm,
And just because you like, I mean, like, does that make sense though? Is that like
yeah, yeah.
sometimes like it's because his entrance, everybody's involved, everybody's invested, but his matches don't match that energy. And I think like he needs to balance those books a little bit. And and obviously he was in the Fatal 4-Way, so obviously that, and at the end of the night, obviously, we'll get to that. But like, and so I think they need to start workhorsing that title again. And obviously like Trick kind of totes the line between, I'd say he's like 60-40 as far as heel versus face.
Mhm.
He's kind of somewhere in there where he's likable, but yet he kind of does a little bit of heelish stuff. But yeah, I would definitely like to see some kind of bringing back of not necessarily the open challenge, but just creating more feuds beyond the handful that they've been, doing. Because I think that's it's unfortunate that the mid card gets subjected to the same repetitive matches, the same repetitive everything. And I would just like to see something a little bit different. But again, it's all about wait and see. They could all of a sudden do something tomorrow or Friday, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I've been waiting for this. So I mean, it's a waiting game to see what product we're gonna get, because all we can deal with is the past and the present and not the future. So we just play along and we see what happens. Now, I don't. Some of these matches I just want to roll over because I feel like there's not a lot of context to talk about.
And we're talking about
Um,
the King of the Ring, right?
so no, so we have Lash Legend that was versus Chelsea Green,
Mm-hmm.
and it's nice to see Chelsea Green back from injury and kind of
Yep.
getting back in the ever flow of things. So, but she's definitely main event level too, though, and I think they, because she's always done what's best for business, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's done whatever gimmick they wanted. She, always performs to the best of her ability. And, she plays her character well, whether it's being chipper or having a chip on your shoulder. And so I look forward to obviously her being back. It's definitely nice to have her back. And hopefully they, get something rolling. Now, the main event of the evening was the Fatal 4-Way, Fatal 4-Way between Dominic Mysterio, Damian Priest, Braun Breaker, and Trick Williams. And honestly, couldn't ask for a better stacked 4 guys to have a match. I mean, because it's different characters and different roles. You have Dominic, who's obviously mega heel and egotistical. You have Damian Priest, that's kind of more of a street type of champion. Kind of that mentality coming from obviously New York and stuff like that. And then you have Braun Breaker, who's just Braun Breaker. And then you have again Trick Williams. And so like honestly, like the match was predictable, as they do. And obviously Dominic won. So like I said, it's predictable. But I don't think I think round 2, because Dominic has to face Obafemi. Best of luck.
We've
But
seen stranger things in pro wrestling.
yeah,
We
and
have.
so we still have we still have the other 2 matches that have to happen. So I don't think obviously they're not going to be this week. Probably the following we'll get the quarterfinals. But so this week we're gonna have. I don't know if they're going to do. I mean, I think they would do both, but we have Rollins versus we have Seth Rollins, Javon Evans, Tala Tonga, and Ricky Saints in a fatal 4-way, and then we have Jey Uso, LA Knight, Royce Keys, and Finn Balor in the other fatal 4-way. So honestly, those aren't looking bad either. So, and then on the women's side, we still have Liv Morgan versus Becky Lynch versus Alexa Bliss and Chelsea Green. So we still have that match to happen. We also have Sol Ruka, Lyra Valkyria, Charlotte Flair, and Jade Cargill, which again is a really stacked talent for a fatal 4-way. Like both of them, honestly. And so I look forward to seeing how those play out this week. And then we can come back next week, see what we have as far as the quarterfinals, And so I think that I will say the product is getting better. And I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that SmackDown is a 3-hour show. And they've been literally having 5 to 6 matches a night. And for once, we're not getting talking points at the end of the show. And so I think the product is on its way to getting better. And, it's because it's been rough.
Yeah.
I mean, I've noticed, and again, like I'm watching, NXT as well, which I think is getting better as well. And, I think a lot of NXT right now is just a matter of pulling the trigger on the right pieces. And I think that when we got the long await return of Tony D'Angelo, and then all of a sudden the family kind of dissipated and he kind of started doing his own thing, kind of changing the gimmick, and where he's at now is phenomenal. His hair is freaking something out of a Street Fighter movie, but no. So I'm definitely noticing the product in its entirety is better. I like Mr. Stone as the GM of NXT now. I think he's been doing a great job. I think they've been putting compelling stories together. And so I think we're finally turning the corner, after I would say pretty much a rough, last probably 2 to 3 months, maybe longer. But yeah, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing, things get better. The King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring is definitely going to make for some interesting matchups. Yeah, so we would put a pin in this as we do, and we'll be back next week to, break down more of the matches. Obviously, more Queen of the Ring and King of the Ring matches to happen this week. And, so we will wait and see as we do. This is the Lockdown Podcast. Peace.